You're watching the whole My Brunch podcast, hosted all the way from Sri Lanka. I am Shavi, and I love talking about many things, starting from the life hustle to the biggest insecurities that all of us have. Do you need that Sunday morning coffee or tea with a strong brew? Then this is the right place for you. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Whole My Brunch podcast. Today we are attending on a sensitive topic, which is bullying. In this episode, I will be highlighting on the pre-university/college facet of bullying. So before anything, here's a trigger warning. Since this entire bullying scenario is very personal to me, this episode will include matter involving a few anecdotal stories in my life as well. And a disclaimer, I will be relating a lot of stories about teachers in this episode. However, I have a few teachers in my life to whom I respect to this day. Definitely, I'm not generalizing all the teachers in this genre. I have a massive respect to all hardworking teachers worldwide, hustling all the way to get their kids on the right side. Alright, according to our good old Oxford Dictionary, the word bullying is defined as seek to harm, intimidate, or coerce, open parenthesis, someone perceived as vulnerable, close parenthesis. As a freethinker, I always believe that education is a right and not a privilege. Therefore, access to education should not be blocked to anyone. Instead, continuous encouragement must be poured into everyone, starting from our young offspring to the people enjoying the evening of their lives. The education is one such essential which empowers the unique one inside of all of us. Initially, we start off our education at the kindergarten, then to elementary, middle to high school, which is altogether a compact of our primary exposure to the outside world. The school time should be a special yet a happy one in any human's life. However, mine was never a happy one, especially my high school episode. Based on what I have experienced, I understand three main vices or roots on why bullying takes place in a school-based environment. Number 1. Competition. This is a real problem, especially in the South Asian context of education. I discussed about this entire competitive nature in the South Asian education system in a previous episode as well. Students are all set up to run that entire stretch of marathon for the upcoming 13 years or 12 years. Parents are obviously behind these innocent kids to get things done in a different way. I see this majority of parents as mere jockeys trying their best attempts to overwork their fresh horses racing out of the stables. Whenever these kids score at least 1 mark lesser than the other kid they know, these parents scapegoat their kid for doing so. Not limited to the plethora of school exams, this internal hypocrisy also exists in varsity sports, extracurricular activities, and more of other outstanding events within the school. Such scapegoating start like this. Why do you do this to us? Don't you have some respect to parents? We want you to score more than everyone else does. Until you prove it to us, no TV, no nice things for you, no extracurricular for you. Imagine this poor kid has to see the faces of these exasperated parents 24 hours, 365 days. When this kid fails to impress such parents, the next step is to meet the teacher and come into negotiations. Sadly, but also funny, most of these negotiations end up in things like weekly treat to that particular teacher in terms of money, transport, fancy lunch out, and most importantly, more brainwashing against that kid, that one kid studying hard in the class and scoring marks. We are humans at the end of the day. Their kid also actively involved spreading lies against that brilliant student and probably get in the way to his or her parents with the thorough guidance by that student's parents and obviously the teacher involved. As the ultimate and unfortunate result, the other brilliant student gets bullied and vulnerable in both direct and indirect ways. My friends, I was that vulnerable and depressed student in school. Thankfully, my parents were there for me every second, and their dear motivation kept me going this far. Imagine your well-written essay has been read to the class by this teacher, and he mockingly expresses, "Ha ha ha ha, your friend is mental. She needs to attend special education school." Along with the entire class cracks an insult and laughter with this teacher. It's really painful. Still, that laughter echoes in my head whenever I hear or read an incident in regard to school bullying. Imagine one of the students verbally harass you when you sit down in the science class for the first time. "Oh man, you don't deserve to sit in a science class. You just don't have that brain at all." And guess what? It totally empowered me to be a biology graduate from a US university and graduated way before my peers did. Nowadays, to survive school, a lot of parents use this brutal tactic of favoritism to get their kid to best but undeserved places due to this poison IVS competition, just to surpass the other kid and reach the first of all the first and everything else. However, my parents never used this tactic. Instead, I was encouraged to show my real self and talents, where I never ever received the place I deserved in anything I loved in the school. During my high school career, I pursued extracurricular which included music, dance, debate clubs, but I had to stop them completely just to keep my teenage mental health a sane one. Number 2, depreciating diversity. The school community can be diversified in terms of co-education, family backgrounds, abilities, talents, students' perspective of the world, sexuality, race, ethnicity, type of course, curriculum, and more of it. Schools try to categorize these diverse sections and they try and enclose them in several boxes, which is quite toxic. When a student who does not belong to a certain box, that student will make the days of those kids enclosed in that certain group or the box way worse. Different terms of derogation will be used by kids coming from several boxes, several separations to corner some kids coming from the same box. So, my dear students, teachers, academic professionals, please embrace diversity and appreciate their ways of life. It makes it easier, and at the same time, you can immerse yourself learning about their culture and surrounding without brutally appropriating and bullying them. The last, but definitely not the least, number 3, misled parents. Just imagine your parents getting called to school by a few teachers just to let them know that their kid should drop out of high school due to some mental disorder which you were not even aware about or not even suffering from. Also imagine you and your parents attend personalized parent-teacher meetings and you are instructed to leave the room by that particular teacher while only your parents will stand with that particular teacher inside the room. Unfortunately, I have been in both of these instances and my parents were very careful in such short-sighted activities done by the teachers in my high school. I have seen most parents lament about their kids whenever teachers project a thought based on mere destructive criticism which is not even reevaluated. What my parents did was super simple. I mean, they did not have any psychology study background, but they know who I am. They regularly interact with me, they identified who I am. Instead of going to extremes of overestimating or degrading me. Parents, you just have to talk to your kid from the toddlerhood itself. Give some freedom and understand their little minds. Spend time with them. That's a little thing, but you won't regret the experience because in the future it will save you and your kid. Trust me, I have been there. I have an interesting story in regard. I was enrolled to one of the most renowned kindergartens in Colombo, Sri Lanka. For the record, I didn't speak for 5 years, but I was able to articulate a little bit. I was so excited on the first day of kindergarten and I quickly approached a piano and got it going, trying to play it. A teacher noticed and expelled me from the kindergarten, issuing a red notice to my parents. Your kid is extremely disabled and deaf, and she can single word. She is extremely suitable to attend a school for deaf. Sorry about that. That's definitely not something parents love to hear on the first day of kindergarten of their only kid. After many medical and psychological confirmations and real understanding, my parents realized that I was definitely not deaf. I mean, they knew it, but they just wanted to reconfirm it because there's stupidity everywhere. It doesn't matter from where, but the teacher made it happen. And hello, teacher, who made the kids' first day of kindergarten as an unforgettable last day in the same kindergarten. She hears a lot of things now, especially in regard to the rooted hypocrisy and injustice in the education system. Oh, and on top of that, she also has a podcast because she could talk probably very well right now. And thank you for all that deep but motivation. To wind up things, let me provide some startling statistics in regard to school-based bullying in a few countries. To be fair, with Sri Lanka and the United States. According to UNICEF-based National Survey on Emerging Issues among Adolescents in Sri Lanka, conducted by the Ministry of Health in the year of 2004, 3 out of 4 school kids have experienced some sort of peer harassment in school. Let's go further for a US-based statistic. According to 2019 National Center for Educational Statistics, 1 out of 5 students get bullied. Alright, I hope you see there's a clear difference in between these two. What's happening in Sri Lanka is extremely worse than what's happening in the United States. When I moved to the United States to pursue higher education, my identity and talents were embraced by the American community as well as their diversified education system. It was supportive to me in all the possible ways, since it only encouraged to represent my best. I was praised for my confidence instead of getting bashed for working hard to achieve an enlightening goal. In fact, I was provided with a unique gasoline, which I was never provided back in the motherland's education. For that, I am forever grateful to the United States for accepting me for who I am. South Asia definitely needs to take more lessons in regard. It's not too late to brighten up and embrace kids for who they are. So, that's all for tonight's episode. Next week, we are going to talk about solo traveling, which is something a lot of us are waiting to take from the bucket list after this corona apocalypse. Hope you have an amazing week ahead. Goodbye.